Okay, class number 2. Are you ready for some more literature? We left off on page 4, so I need you to turn to page 4 of your literature book. And we already started our 5 elements page for this scene. It's chapter 1, scene 2. We found our setting, and this setting tells us that this story takes place in the 13th century. And it happened on the Alpine Mountains. Alpine Mountains are, you remember the maps that you studied, that you colored in? They are, this setting is in Switzerland. That's where you find these Alpine Mountains. They're very, very, very tall mountains. Okay, and we studied the character of Hedwig. Hedwig is Walter and Rudy's mother. And so what we wrote for characterization, the very top one here, up here, we wrote, Hedwig laughed as she leaned down and kissed her boy, and Walter knew that she was teasing, yet her words pleased him. Walter knew that mom loved him, and that's why it didn't bother him that his mom was teasing. She was teasing with love, all right? So we are looking for what the next element we're going to be looking for is the leading idea down here. What is a leading idea? It's a leading idea. A leading idea is a thought that leads to a principle. So it's a way of thinking based on what you believe. If you believe truth, you're going to have a thought based on truth. If you believe a lie, your thoughts are going to be based on a lie. So we're looking for something that shows us a certain kind of leading idea. And the one we're looking for is one of the several natural affections. Remember at the beginning of the school year, we learned about the 7 natural affections, and see if you remember what they are. It was love of God, love of God's word, love of family, love of education, love of, did I say education? Nature, love of the individual, and love of liberty. All right. When you begin to put God's truth in you and begin to love the things that God loves, and those are the things that God loves. And when you read good literature, you will learn the 7 natural affections. The one we're going to choose of those 7 is love of home and family. So we're going to look for something in our reading that shows us that there was love of home and family. We're going to pick up where we left off. And if you go down 1, 2, 3, go down to the 4th paragraph. So you can go to the 4th paragraph. Let me see. Right here where it says, but why? Right, where is it? Right there. But why? Okay, when you find that, that's where we're going to pick up our reading. And we're going to look for something that tells us there was love in the home and the family. It says, but why should you, the elder son of William Tell, hit the bullseye? Hedwig laughed as she leaned down and kissed her boy. Walter knew that she was teasing, yet her words pleased him. Still smiling, she poured milk into 2 carved wooden bowls and cut thick slices of a huge loaf of rye bread. Walter and Rudy soaked the bread in milk and ate it hungrily. They felt content in their little warm hut. Their mother loved them. Besides, was not their father the best bowman in the land of Uri? So what is this? This paragraph gave us an insight into what kind of mom Hedwig was, and we wrote down for characterization, but it also tells us what kind of home this was. Let me go back and read. Walter and Rudy, she made bread for them. She gave them their glass of milk. Well, maybe not glass. I don't know. Back in those days, I don't think they had glass. They felt content in their little warm hut. Content means satisfied. Their needs were satisfied. They felt good. They felt content. It's like being happy, but it's a different kind of happy. It's like what I need is being given to me. All right. They felt content in their little warm hut. Their mother loved them. All right, their mother loved them. And besides, was not their father the best bowman in the land of Uri? They were also content because they had a father that they were proud of. And so that shows us that when we grow up, you that are children, when you grow up, you want to grow up and be the best person you can possibly be. I'm sure that because he was the best bowman, because he tried to do everything with excellence. Everything he did, his hunting, his bow and arrow, when he spoke to the other countrymen, he did everything in excellence, and they were proud of their dad. So that's what we're going to put down for our leading idea. Okay, so this is what we're going to write down for leading idea. Don't get scared. I know that looks like a lot. So don't start writing yet. Let me give you the instructions. First of all, don't start writing. Okay. Love of home and family. That is not in your book. We're writing that down so we know what kind of leading idea this is, because there's many different kinds of leading ideas. So this you're going to write, and you're going to separate this from this by writing two dots like that. It's called a colon. All right. Now what we take out of the book is going to be in quotes. So you have a quote here, and when we finish, we have another quote. This quote is taking this and taking this and saying this is from what someone else said. Now, spelling group number one, William, David, Nathan, and Josias. All you have to do is write to this red line here. You can stop right there. But when you stop, you have to put your quotes. These quotes here, these, you're going to have to put them here. And you're going to have to put the page number here. All right? The rest of you are going to write this whole thing. Don't forget, make sure you put make sure you put periods where they belong. This is the end of a sentence. We start the sentence with an uppercase letter. We end the sentence with a period. We start with the uppercase. We end with a period. We start with an uppercase. There's a comma because that's a pause. And we end, instead of ending with a period, what is this called? This is called a question mark. That means someone is asking a question. All right. We put a comma. We close with our quotation, and we put down where we found this quote. We found it on page 4. All right. So go ahead and write down for leading idea. I believe that's all. Okay. So it says, love of home and family. They felt content in their little warm hut. Their mother loved them. Besides, was not their father the best bowman in the land of Uri? Question being asked. Close the quote, and it's found on page 4. Go ahead and pause your video so you can write that. Okay, so let's get back to our reading. Now, we're going to be looking for the plot or the event of this scene. There's going to be a lot of reading to get to the plot, several pages. And I don't want to make this video too long. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read rather quickly. If you can't keep up with me, just listen. Listen to what's happening in the story and who's saying what. And when I get close to the plot, I will let you know, okay, the plot is coming up. As I'm reading, remember, I want you to keep your eyes open for a style of writing called alliteration. 2 or more words in the same sentence that begin with the same consonant, all right? I'm going to let you guys do that on your own. I'm not going to do that for you. It's pretty easy. So we just have the plot left to do, and I believe we're done. So I'm going to begin reading where I just left off right now. Let me see. All right, so they felt content in their little warm hut. Their mother loved them. Besides, was not their father the best bowman in the land of Uri? Father is late, said Walter as he drank the last drop of warm milk in his bowl. Yes, he is, said Hedwig, looking out the window. As I was weaving this afternoon on the loom, I often thought I heard his step on the trail, but only a rock slipped on the mountainside or a tree groaned in the wind that rises from the valley at nightfall. In these days, no woman knows if her man will return home when the sun drops behind the mountains. Now, there are many instances that show us the love of home and family in the following paragraphs. This is another one. Mom was always keeping her ears out for to see if she could hear Dad coming home. She loved him and she was worried for him. And then you see instances where the children um, also show love to mom in the way they speak and the way they behave. Walter saw his mother's anxious face and said soothingly, "Don't worry, mother. Father will soon come. He always came home. He always comes home, and with game too, doesn't he?" Game is, you guys know the word game by when you play a game. But in a game, another definition for game is when you go hunting for an animal to provide food for yourself or others. So game is um, what you hunt for. "You are very young, my son," answered Hedwig softly. "You do not know all that goes on now in the land of Uri. It is not as it was then when I was a child. Rudy was already asleep, his head resting on the table beside his empty bowl. Hedwig lifted him gently and carried him to bed. She slipped off his buckskin pants and removed his linen blouse. Then she laid him down on the grass-filled mattress and covered him with a homespun blanket of goat's hair. And as she drew the curtain about his bed, she spoke to Walter, who was sitting on a bench, munching on a tart mountain apple. "He's just a baby," she said gently. "He is always so tired at night when he comes home. Yet each morning when he wakes, he is as fresh as a spring crocus." That's a winter flower, and they grow where it's very cold, where it snows. "He tried to hold a crossbow all by himself today," added Walter, smiling, "but he's not yet strong enough. Sometimes I hold it for him and let him shoot. When he presses the trigger and the arrow goes twing, he feels so big and so happy. Just wait, son, some day he will be a good bowman too, like your father," said Hedwig, taking up her knitting. All was quiet in the hut as Walter gnawed on the apple. He heard the wind whining among the pine trees. A goat bleated contentedly. Prince barked, hoping someone would let him in, but he was not allowed in the hut. His job was to watch the goats all night long. "Mother," Walter asked at last, "why are you so sad tonight? What did you mean when you said times were better when you were a child? You warned me not to tell Rudy about the time father and grandfather were gone all night and did not come until the next day. I overheard them talking, you remember? What did they do on the mountainside, on the mountaintop all night, mother? Won't you tell me? I am 11 years old now." Hedwig, Tell is her last name, let her knitting fall in her lap as she looked at her son. "Sadly, yes, you are 11 years old, Walter, and soon will be a man. It is too big. It is too bad you overheard your father and grandfather talking together. When your father gets excited, he talks too loudly, and sometimes I fear they may even hear him in the village. You know now that some men were plotting together, and your father and grandfather were with them on the mountain. Since you do not know this already, I must tell you more. It may be beyond your years, but you must try hard to understand, son. Listen carefully." Hedwig was so solemn that Walter whispered, "Yes, mother, I will try hard to understand you." His eyes were big with wonder. His heart beat fast, and he was not a bit sleepy. "Years ago," began Hedwig very quietly, "there was a king named Rudolph. He was a ruler of Germany, Austria, and of course our canton of Uri. Also our neighbor cantons of Schwyz and Underwalden. Each year he sent men to collect taxes from us as rulers do. Otherwise he left us alone. Also once a year he sent a nobleman to judge disputes among us. Disputes over a cow, a goat, a boundary line, or perhaps a forest. Now a dispute is a disagreement. When people disagree and they can't come to an agreement, sometimes they end up fighting. It seems there were always quarrels, that's fighting, among people everywhere. As I said, a nobleman from Austria came yearly to judge us and then returned to Austria again. But it is so different now. What do you mean, mother? It is so different now. How is it different? Please tell me. I can understand. I am big. Hedwig put her arms around him as she said, "The good King Rudolph died at last, as all men must. He was a good king as kings he was a good king as kings go. Then his son Albrecht became king. Albrecht was different from his father. He believed the king should rule with a hard hand and that a king should hold a tight rein over his people. That means control their people a lot. He did not want us to be as free as we had always been in the canton of Uri. So he didn't want liberty for the people. Why, mother? Asked Walter, wonder in his eyes. I will tell you, son, continued Hedwig. You know the big road, the St. Gothard that crawls up the Alps to the very top? That is the road to Italy. Yes, answered Walter. I saw a pack train go through Altdorf one day, and the boys said the horses carried fine linens and such things from Lucerne and other cities. They said the men and the horses were going to Italy. No doubt they were, replied his mother. Everyone who travels over the St. Gothard road must pay gold to Albrecht. The road goes right through Uri, and that is only one reason why the king wants our people to be tame. That means to just sit and not complain and allow them to do whatever they want. He gets much gold from the travelers over the road, big bags of gold. To be sure, we are tame. Albrecht now sends bailiffs. Bailiffs are like sheriffs, okay, into the country, and these bailiffs stay here all the time. Some of them are low-born men like Gessler at Altdorf. Low-born men are men without, they're not Christian, they're not, they don't have education, they're not very well trained. So she said, some of these men are low-born. They're not from royalty. They're from just common man, just like you and me. Um, and she mentions someone by the name of Gessler, and he's from Altdorf. He's not of noble blood, Walter, but a common man like ourselves. This Gessler is always about prying into affairs. He's sticking a nose where it doesn't belong, always wanting to know what people are doing. He who We who have been free since there were mountains. Did you hear how Gessler put out the eyes of Arnold's old father when the bailiff could not find Arnold? Wow, that's pretty evil. He took out the old man's eyes because he couldn't find his son. Yes, grandfather told me about it, answered Walter. I have hated Gessler ever since. He must be a coward to do that to an old man. Yes, he is a coward, son, replied Hedwig. He is building that great stone castle at Altdorf, the castle of Zwinguri. Gessler makes the peasants work on the castle whether they wish to or not. Folks say that when the castle is finished, Gessler will live in it all of the time and watch us as a cat watches a mouse's hole or the lion waits for the deer to graze before he springs. A part of the castle is a prison to put some independent mountain folk in when they even speak of freedom. Hedwig spoke so bitterly that Walter became fearful too. He often glanced at the curtained window, wondering if someone were outside listening. It has grown worse with each year, continued his mother. At last your father and grandfather, with Arnold and Stauffacher, decided the time had come to act. That means they were tired of this and they decided we're going to do something about this. It was useless to protest anymore. These four men talked to friends they trusted. Several weeks ago, 33 men, 11 from which of the three cantons, met on the Rutli. Do you know where the Rutli is, son? Yes, mother, I do, answered Walter softly, glancing at the window again, for he heard Prince bark. We passed below it once when I was fishing with father on the lake. Father said it was an open meadow surrounded by a dense forest. That is the Rutli, replied his mother, a wild and lonely place, so far away from Altdorf that no soldier of Gessler's would know of it. Your father said that the 33 men argued all night. Not one of them wanted to shed blood. That means they didn't want to start a war where they had to kill people. But they all wanted to drive out the bailiffs. They wanted the sheriffs gone, the bailiffs gone. Toward morning, they swore on a sword to stand together and come what may. That means they decided, they agreed that they were going to do something no matter what they had to do. So that they plan to revolt on the new year, she went on. If the people of one canton are attacked, the folks of the other two cantons promise to come and help them. All will fight as one nation. All will die together too, if it ever comes to that. We are a stubborn race, said Hedwig. On the new year, we will revolt then, asked Walter wonderingly. Yes, said Hedwig, determination in her voice, and that will be soon. The year 1291, notice the year 1291, will dawn soon. Gessler's stone prison will never be finished, my son. Hedwig trembled as she spoke, and Walter trembled too, for he had never seen his mother so disturbed. She was usually so quiet and happy. So that is why I must not speak to the meeting on the Rutli, whispered Walter. I understand now. Yes, that is the reason, son. Do not whisper a word to anyone, even to Rudy or Marie, the herd girl, the little girl that watches the goats with them. For if it should leak out that we will revolt on New Year's Day, your own father, Walter, might be the first one to die. Promise, son, to keep this secret locked in your heart. Say nothing to anyone. And that's the end of scene 2 right there. So the whole time, the whole scene, the plot was about the secret. And the secret, what we found out what the secret is. So that's what we're going to write for the plot. And I will show you what I've written down for you. Okay, so before I show you, I'm going to stand in front so you don't start writing because then you won't listen to me. Listen, what is a plot? The plot is the event that makes up the story or the scene or the whole book. Okay, our plot is for this scene, scene 2. Every event has a what? Has a cause. So not only do we have to identify the event, but we have to write the cause. The event was, promise, son, to keep this secret locked in your heart. Why did she say that? She said that because she told them what the secret was. If she hadn't told them what the secret was, she wouldn't tell them to keep it a secret. All right. So if we go back in our reading to the previous, let me see, to the cause. The plot is on the top, the second paragraph of of page 12. But if we go back to page 10, we will find the cause. And when she tells them, it's on the 4th paragraph down. She says, they plan to revolt on the new year, she went on. If the people of one canton are attacked, the folks of the other cantons promise to come and help them. So they're going to revolt on New Year's Day. They already picked the day and say, on this day, we're going to rise up and fight against these bailiffs that are controlling us and telling us what to do. And so it's a revolt is coming up and rising or attacking, not attacking, but coming up and fighting against authority that is trying to control you. It's not right to stand up to authority, but when they are trying to control you, then you rise up and you defend your rights. All right, so that's what they wanted to do. So they weren't doing anything bad. They were just defending their liberty. Okay, they had no liberty. So remember that we use quotes when we take something from someone who said someone said something, we write quotes. Okay, so when I say promise, son, to keep this heart locked in your heart, who wrote that? The authors wrote that. Conrad and Mary Buff wrote that. But who is saying it? Hedwig is saying it. So now we're quoting something two people said. So when someone says something that someone else said, and then we say someone said something what someone else said, then we got to write two quotes. So I want you to pay attention to this. Actually, I forgot the quote. We begin with the uppercase we're quoting Conrad and Mary Buff, but they are writing what someone said. So then we put one single quote. This means that this is what someone in the book said, and this is what Conrad and Mary Buff wrote. So mom is saying, promise son, comma, to keep this secret locked in your heart, comma, end of quote. That's what she said. And we find it on page 12. When we write down our cause, we put it in parentheses. See this line? This is a parentheses, and we close it with a parentheses. We put the cause inside, kind of like this, like holding it inside. And this also someone in the book said, mom said this. So we put two quotes, the opening quote and the single quote, uppercase they, beginning of a new sentence. They plan to revolt on New Year. This is an event. So we uppercase N, uppercase Y. They plan to revolt on New Year, comma, single quote, double quote, and we find this on page 10. Yes, page 10. That is our plot, all right? And remember, alliteration is you find your alliteration, and I hope everyone finds one. I saw lots of them, so there's no excuse not to have one. And this is the end of scene 2, and on Thursday we'll begin scene 3. All right, pause your videos so you can write down your plot. Bye-bye.